Is North Melbourne's youth excuse wearing thin? The unbeaten Cats are on the agenda as Lloydie and I eat some humble pie. Plus, are Collingwood back? And is their coach, Craig McRae, a killjoy or a master of theatre? This is Access All Areas, thanks to Crypto.com. Great to have your company. Damian Barrett and Matthew Lloyd join me as always. Morning to you both.
Morning, Matt.
I reckon you're up and about. We'll get to that in a moment, Damo. But we start with North Melbourne. They are winless on the bottom of the ladder. We are a quarter of the way through the season so far, Lloydie. What have you been most disappointed about with them?
You want to see signs of improvement, Nat, and you want to see them get closer to a win as every week goes by. But unfortunately, you look at their results, through the losses, 39 points, 26 points, 56 points. Then it went 70, 75, in it at a quarter time, and then by half time, they've crumbled and fallen apart again. And it's probably, to me, Damo, I'm not seeing a system that, there was North Ball early in the year where they're going fast. But aside from that, I'm not really sure. They're defensively really poor. Yeah. Individuals like Simpkin and LDU playing really poor footy. How do you see it?
No, look, I think they've gone backwards, and I'm not even sure they've hit rock bottom yet, Lloydie. And that is damning on a club that, going back in the last 4 years, these are total win numbers in the last 4 years: 3, 2, 4, and 3. They've now got 0 out of the 6 matches played, and they were blown away against the second worst team in the competition this year by some distance, Hawthorn. So I don't know where their next win is coming. And now, you want to focus on what Alistair Clarkson has been saying and is saying, and there is an element of faith that the club has put in him, but I don't have it anymore in him. I don't think, to your point, Lloyd, there is a system. I think they're just words coming out of Alistair's mouth. He has now had a season and 6 matches to get it right. I know there was a period of time where he took himself out of the game for the right reasons, but so that can't be used against him. But right now, they are as big a mess as they have been at any stage of the post-Brad Scott era, which included some disasters under Reece Shaw and David Noble.
You said, big thing there, you just said, lost faith. So you're saying you now believe he was the wrong choice for North Melbourne?
I never thought it was the wrong choice, but I wasn't sold as it being the absolute pinnacle of choice. But, Lord, his legend was made on the back of good players. That's no secret. North don't have the great play. I mean, when he got to Hawthorn, he had already on these books Hodge and Mitchell, and that very first year they drafted Franklin and Roughhead and others around them.
This is a man who's won 4 premierships.
Yes, with good players on a list.
But he also did it. You've still got to build that list. They didn't win many games when he first got there. I'm not saying it's going to happen at North, and things do evolve and change, but I'd never take anything away from what he...
I'm not taking it away, but what I am highlighting, Lloyd, there were good players on the list when he got there. He brought better players in after he got there. I'm not convinced North has got anything like those players right now. I know what Sheasel is doing, but Sheasel right now is being used out of whack. Now, let's take a listen to what he said yesterday, and I'll get your take on this then, Lloyd, to see what you make of what Alistair Clarkson said post-match.
You know what the narrative's going to be, but knew that 18 months ago, 2 years ago, when we took on the job, we needed to change the culture and environment of our footy club and invest in youth. It's the only way that we can go, and that's what we've done. We don't back away from that.
So you're saying, Damo, that the youth excuse is wearing thin at this point. But like he said, it takes time to rebuild a culture and to bring these players in. Do you not think 2 years is maybe not enough time?
But that I add the previous 4 years to that as well. I know that now we've moved this on to Clarkson, but there is no backline to speak of. They are slowly killing Nick Larkey as a forward. I mean, Nick Larkey's played in 20 wins out of 100 games. Some other numbers. Wardlaw, who wasn't played yesterday, was managed, has not had a win in 13 games. Harry Sheasel has had 3 wins and 26 losses. Eddie Ford, a player yesterday, always gives his all. 1 win, 27 losses. You talk about culture. A culture only changes when you start to, A, be competitive and B, win.
That's the last point. I agree with that point. There's no real steely resolve about them at all. So you can lose, but they're not really showing a fight that you'd hope for from an Alistair Clarkson side.
There was frustration. You could see, I think, a few players very frustrated on field, which shows that they care and the passion is there, but you just want to see more.
Well, again, they've chosen to go into the season with no backline to speak of. I mean, Lloyd, you're the expert in that space. I mean, am I wrong in saying that?
I said at round 1 that they'd let down their members and supporters by entering a season like blind Freddie could have seen that they were going to be smashed by every forward in the competition with that back line.
And to that point, Ben Mackay, who had toiled for 8 seasons for 8 wins and 63 losses, when his free agency was up, of course he got out of there. You can't begrudge him that. There's other decisions that the players need to make. And I know some people, and I think even maybe you at times, Lloydie, and you too, Nat, have felt I've been really critical of North. Yes, I have, but I have not seen one thing to make me think that I'm not on the right track with the criticism.
Well, we'll see if they show anything against the Adelaide Crows down in Hobart in round 7. To the Hawks, though, who played the Roos, they got their first win of the season and they were embarrassed their midfield the week before against Gold Coast. But Lloydie, Jai Newcombe was one of a couple of midfielders who responded. 32 touches there, 9 clearances, and he looks like he's getting his mojo back.
Hawthorn did what they should do, but to their credit, you know what they did to North Melbourne? They ramped up the pressure. They ramped up the heat. I saw an intensity at Hawthorn where they smelt blood in the water. They went after them and then they kicked 8 goals in the second quarter and they got reward for it. So at least Sam Mitchell can go back and say, look, if you bring this pressure, what you can do to opposition teams. And that's where he said, bring the mouth guards, do what you need to do. I know, and that's what I liked from Hawthorn. They went after a team and played harder, tougher footy.
But they're going to need to do it on a more consistent
against better
basis.
sides as well.
Yes, that is correct. All right, to the SCG yesterday, and the Sydney Swans were very dominant against the Gold Coast Suns, and Lloydie, they really punished them on turnover.
Yeah, again, I know we've started pretty strongly here this morning, but this is, is there anything different to the Gold Coast Suns? In the first 6 weeks under Damian Hardwick, I know it'll take time for him as well, but they just rolled over. So they started the game well and then played a quarter of footy and then 12 goals to 5 after quarter time, and it was one-way traffic for the Sydney Swans.
Damo, we've been waiting for them to make finals when it comes to the Gold Coast Suns. Have you seen anything from them under Damian Hardwick that suggests they're going to do that this year?
Well, you see a future in contrast with what North Melbourne is about at the moment in my eyes. Now, I still don't think they're going to make the finals this year. They keep falling short in matches that they would have given themselves a chance in the lead up to, i.e. yesterday. But they're on the right track, and you know that what they're doing this year is going to set them up by way of a guarantee in the future.
This is just a graphic I want to show where they've only won games at home. So they beat Richmond in opening round, they beat Adelaide in opening round, and they beat Hawthorn at home. So every other loss has been away. It says home for the Giants, but that was in the Adelaide Oval in Adelaide. So, want to see them show more. And if it's not Rowell, Anderson and Took Miller dominating, well, are they going to win games of footy in any other way?
Now, the Cats, as I mentioned off the top, are on our agenda. And Lloydie, I think Damo was pretty happy to come in this morning. He was like, I need the producer to get this and this out. And, well, let's just have a listen to what Damo said in one of our earlier shows. All right, Damo, who have you got?
Look at the Cats going back right up high, Nat.
Grand final, Damo.
Yeah.
Well, I had them in the grand final in 2022, and I think you both said the same thing as well, and they won that year.
Another few years on, and players a bit older.
Well, again, Lloydie, we made predictions in the pre-season. Let's see how we go.
Grand final. That is bold. Nat, you were laughing. I was scoffing. But he said grand final, Damo, and now you
scoffed and ridiculed me.
And you know what? I'm
we owe you an apology.
Yeah, and you were right.
You did too.
All right, fine.
They are in a wonderful position to set themselves up for what
they have done well, mate. I mean, they've got the best coach by some way, and he can adapt this club over seasons. He can adapt it within a game of footy. I refer to what they did against Brisbane Lions on the weekend. I mean, they had a system where they didn't have Tom Stewart there for a while. They had wet conditions. It didn't matter. They just dominated.
We're now going to run a tape of all of your failed predictions.
I'm joking.
I'm joking. Now, Lloydie, talk to me about Geelong. 6-0, they are absolutely flying, but you want to highlight who's been attending these centre bounces.
Yeah, because they lost Patrick Dangerfield for a period of time and they've lost Cameron Guthrie for a period of time. But look at the new faces while they're still unbeaten. Toby Conway. Now, the evolution from Reece Stanley to Toby, I think, will happen throughout the year. Danger was back in. Mark O'Connor, he gets a hold of Lockie Neal. Wasn't effective. Bruin is one of the more improved players. Parfitt gets his opportunity. He was in the wilderness. He's playing fantastic footy. Clark, Bowes. So I love how this side's evolving as well.
And the dynamic goes further, doesn't it, Lloydie? I mean, they're not in the centre clearance, but Cameron's role up the field. I thought Stengel played arguably the most complete game of footy he played on the weekend. I know he's an All-Australian in a premiership winning year, but that game he played against the Lions was complete.
You're right, and they're the best defensive side in the comp, so it's hard to find a weakness.
Touching on Brisbane now, and none of us predicted that last year's grand finalists would be 2-4. They haven't won at the Gabba at all this year. We've seen glimpses at times. Damo, the question I have for you is, are they wasting their premiership window?
I'm just going to hold Nat for a fortnight, maybe 3 or 4 weeks, just to give them the chance to resurrect this year. I was big on them learning and gaining and gleaning something out of that toil and that mental anguish of going so close and falling short, particularly after last year's grand final. Clearly, there's reason to doubt that right now. I'm just going to hold on that, just on completely putting a line through them being up there again.
Where do you sit, Lloyd?
I'm a bit harder on them. I loved their final series last year, and even on grand final day, I love what they produced, but they didn't win it. And I just look at this talent, and there's that much of it on this list. You know, they are all, pretty much all Australians. Best and fairest.
Brownlow medalists.
Brownlow medalists, the works. But alarm bells. They're not making top 4. They've lost too many games already to make the top 4, so they're going to have to do it from outside. They nearly would need to win just about every game to make the top 4 from here, because you want to maybe drop around 4 games. They've already lost 3 games at home. So that's a real concern for them and where they're heading. And I think it is a waste of their talent, and they should have won one with what they've got.
So with Geelong unbeaten so far, it sets up a very juicy clash on Saturday afternoon at the MCG, because they're taking on the Blues, who have lost just the 1 game. Do you reckon the Baggers are a genuine chance?
Absolutely. I love what they did against GWS with all the injuries they've got. There's 5 players that would have got a game in that 23, Lordo. Michael Voss doesn't want that as an excuse. He presented that publicly. He clearly presented it internally. They're just a no-fuss team that goes and gets the job done with whatever 23 they've got. And the fact that their biggest names got them out of that trouble in the second quarter, Walsh and Cripps initially to get the ball moving, and then the 2 big guys, the 2 Coleman medalists, kicking the goals in that second quarter to turn it around.
Well, it's now a triple threat, isn't it, Lloydie?
Yeah, they're brutally tough, and I wanted to show the work rate of TDK, Tom De Koning, and so he's taken the ruck hit out. This is where Briggs' next challenge will be, going up against some of these players like Luke Jackson and Tom De Koning. Well, look at the work rate. So when you're over 200 centimetres at ground level, to run from the centre bounce and then take it off your toes and then kick a goal like that, inspiration. He kicked 3, Nat, and you're right. If he can do that a bit more often, look out.
Yeah, it's been great having Mark Pitternet in there to allow him to do that. So the Giants have to lick their wounds now after that loss to Carlton. They face the Brisbane Lions on Anzac Day, but they're going to have to do it without their skipper in Toby Green, who's been suspended for 1 game. Toby tax or the right call, Lloydie?
The right call for mine. Take the chest mark, Toby. You didn't need to turn. Boyd was a more vulnerable player in that situation. So stay front on, take the chest mark, and you're not being...
Do you risk hurting him more, though, if you do that?
That's okay.
Yeah, and Lloyd's been reading the situation accurately all the way through. He was right on Peter Wright's decision against Harry Cunningham, and he was big yesterday before that was come through the match review office that he's got a week. And as we talk right now, we don't know if he's going to the tribunal. We expect him to, but you don't expect him to play next week.
No, I don't. And Jesse Hogan was just foolish.
Yeah,
undisciplined. You just got to keep your hands away from players.
To the MCG now on Saturday afternoon. Collingwood flexing their muscle after quarter time against Port Adelaide. They've got 3 wins now, Damo. So they've beaten Brisbane, Hawthorn and now Port Adelaide. Are they genuinely back?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That second quarter where they were 31 points down, went into the main break, 2 goals up. It was born of that hardness of 2022 and 2023 at its extreme. It was actually sparked by someone who you don't normally associate it with, Will Hoskin-Elliott.
Yeah.
I loved what he did, and he brought others into it almost instantaneously.
Lloydie, that DNA, it seems to be back.
Yeah, Nat, they were really poor in their first 3 rounds, and they weren't pressuring like they know they can. And then they got their pressure rating against Brisbane is the highest of any team this year. And that's where it all started. And they did it again against Port Adelaide when the game was on the line. And I want to show that you've got to come forward. You've got to press in and pressure. This is Jordan De Goey, which got it going. It's 51 apiece. Look at the intent in Jordan De Goey's eyes. And this is where Port Adelaide started to fall apart. Josh Dacos, not often renowned for this either. He pressed forward. And suddenly if you force a team going backwards, they're in trouble. And you know you've got them. Drive it in. Suddenly this is Collingwood at their best. Lipinski, Bo McCreary. If you can keep the ball in your forward half, you get right on top. Here's another one. So Scotty Pendlebury was moved to the half-back flank He's got the most tackles in league history now as well, Scotty Pendlebury, but he presses in on Sam Palpepper. Watch Tommy Mitchell starts to come forward. They all start forcing Port Adelaide backwards again, and the surge starts to go. He comes in for the second time. And watch Willem Drew, who's normally a strong player over the ball. Watch the panic set in. First it's a fumble, and then watch what happens after that. So he fumbles initially, hacks it off the ground, misses it, and suddenly, psychologically, Collingwood have got on top of him.
And the barrel, Lordo, the big barrel.
And the barrel goes forward, brings the ball to ground. This guy, they're unselfish, they're smart. Lipinski kicks another one, and that's when you knew they are back in the race again, the Pies.
Now, you mentioned Scott Pendlebury, Lloydie. Damo, he's so close to notching up his 10,000th disposal, and when he does, he'll be the first player in AFL-VFL history to reach the milestone. On Saturday, though, Craig McRae subs him off. I think he's on 9,996 disposals. Killjoy or Master of Theatre?
Now, you love this stat, so you'll be able to talk about it and celebrate it in advance now for the next game, won't you? That was theatre. That was just pure theatre. No, he was sore from the ribs that he took into that game. So
come on, he would
move.
have got the forward touches, but it's true we're going to be talking about it all week. And on Anzac Day, can you imagine? We're all going to be on Pendle's watch for that first quarter. We should touch on Port Adelaide while we are on this topic. The loss has left them at 4-2 for the season, and this was their coach Ken Hinkley after the game.
And that's why it's a little bit hard. The first quarter was, you get a glimpse of what we think we're more than capable of doing. We've produced that most of the time this year, but the last three quarters we get a reality check on that there's a gap that we're chasing still.
It is a reality check because you look at their record over the last 12 months, then they are a bit of a tease. They don't often stand up, and this is against sides top four when they play them. All those sides that finish around the top four, and you see they've lost their last six now, Damo, since round 18 last year. Carlton, Collingwood, Brisbane, GWS, Melbourne and Collingwood, they'll get to 6-2. They'll win their next two. Then they play Geelong on a Friday night in Geelong. But they're the type of...
It's unfortunate, isn't it, that they
is.
keep winning enough games to put themselves in it, but when it comes to the absolute crunch, they're just not there. And I think it's the forward line as much as anywhere at the moment, Lordo. I just don't see them getting the ultimate job done with Todd Marshall there. I know Dixon was taken out of this game, managed. I like Georgiades, and he's coming off a knee, and I think he's going to be good, but I just don't see an edge in there.
Yeah, and down the other end too, I'll still wait and see how Ratugolea and Zerk Thatcher and these types of guys are going to stand up in the big games.
What does it mean for someone like Ken Hinkley, though, Damo, when we look at his coaching tenure? He's been there but not quite there in terms of grand finals. And what does it mean for the future?
It'll be differently played out publicly, Nat, this year, given that he's contracted for this and next year.
Yep.
So that was smart by the club, the way they did it last year. But it is his 12th season. We know that there is a nudge, wink arrangement with Josh Carr beneath him. And if they get to a stage of this year, but again, at 4-2, and you expect them to get to 6-2, it's not a conversation they're having right now. But if it does get to a point where they either miss finals or miss top four and go out early, the conversations has to be had. I mean, and Ken would expect that. It's his 12th year in charge, and he hasn't reached the big game. And that's just a brutal, tough way to look at it, but that's the way the game is.
All right, to the Western Derby now, and wow, West Coast have won 2 games on the trot. The first time they've won back-to-back games, in fact, since 2018, or make it 3 years, something like that, Damo. It's such a good story. It's been a long time for them, but we will get to Harley Reid in just a moment. But just West Coast, their supporters are up and about, and they haven't dropped off when you look at their attendances at games as well.
No, and that was the startling aspect of it. They never did, and then they got their season rolling, albeit through a loss in Sydney. Against Sydney in Gather Round. They came back without the points, but then to go and do a semi-number on Richmond last week, and then the big game against Fremantle on the weekend, Nat, and it's going to allow you now to highlight a special player who
after this, Damo, because I just want to go first. It's not often we talk about a side being unfit and unprofessional, which I've been in agreement with Kane Corns, who first said, are they fit enough as a team? And I'm with him. I know they had a lot of injuries, but often that can come about where you're not match hardened and you're not fit and you put pressure on your body. And I now see them covering the ground in a way I haven't seen them cover the ground for a while, Nat. So this is what I love about it, the run, the carry. And this allows for somebody like Waterman to hit up and lead up at the footy. Jack Darling to find a bit of form because the midfielders are running so well.
Jake Waterman, we saw him there.
Yeah.
He's
I want to get to him, mate.
Crypto.
I jumped the gun then.
I know, Crypto.com, bold play, because 9 months ago, He was in hospital, diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. Didn't even know if he'd be able to play football again. And he's kicked 11 goals in 2 weeks.
He looks like Fraser Gehrig doing it, doesn't he, at times with that little mullet out the back.
Yep.
I know Fraser was the second last player to kick 100 goals in a season. I don't think that's going to happen. But equally, his fortnight, we're about to talk about a very special, very special talent, Nat, but equally dominating in his part of the ground has been Jake Waterman. And I'm glad you've highlighted him as the Crypto.com bold player of the week.
5 goals to him against Fremantle. But we can't talk about the derby without mentioning Harley Reid. And he's just an absolute joy to watch. The hype is real, and I think we all should be very excited, except for one person who's probably trying to keep a lid on it, Coach Adam Simpson.
I'm really cautious to not overplay it because he's 19. You know, it's hard to sustain that coming into the AFL. But while he keeps doing it, I think we should all enjoy it. But let's not get too worried if he has an off day.
No, we're not worried if he has an off day because he's not having off days. Have a look at this.
The lid's off.
He's taking hangers. He's having a smile on his face as he does it. He goes back and kicks crucial goals with an old-fashioned drop punt. Just embrace everything that this man is offering. And look at this tackle to get the ball and then to just burst out having got the tackle.
Generational. So I'm talking, these players come around once every, 15, 20 years. This is how good this guy is.
Here's another one.
And you said, Damo, he's not just changed the West Coast, he's changed the way we view football in a state, Western Australia. And Durham spoke about Cyril Rioli. He used to put a smile on his face. He's doing that for me.
Yeah, same. It's amazing. My dad's a West Coast supporter and will not shut up about Harley Reid. All right, time now for quick hands. Lloydie, to you first. Have Sam Durham and Jai Caldwell been the catalyst for the Essendon edge?
I think they have been that. They're evolving this midfield. It's Merritt surrounded by Durham and Caldwell, and I've loved what they've done the last 2 weeks. Damo, to you, did we like seeing Sam Draper rubbing it in to the Adelaide Crows?
I'm going to say yes, Lloyd. I smiled when I saw it. I loved it. I mean, I wouldn't have done it. Look, this is the free kick in question. And look, it had to be paid a free kick. The AFL effectively acknowledged that yesterday. And then the playing up to the crowd post-match, as he does here, I think
the Adelaide crowd would have hated that.
Of course they did, and that's why he did it. And he's wired very differently, Nat.
I like
but
it.
Back on that Draper moment, was the non-call, did the non-call mask the real problems at the Crows?
Oh, yeah, the Bombers certainly deserve to win that game. They're 19 points down and come back. I think there's a huge range of issues at the Crows, which we've highlighted over a number of weeks now. So, yep, certainly did that. Damo, do we give the Saints a pass for playing 3 games in 11 days? That's a lot of footy.
It is, but I don't like the narrative, and it was put out there publicly. It means there's problems. If you're winning at least one of those, maybe 2, you're not talking about it. It's only when you start losing and playing badly. I think it's a cop-out. Every club's got a problem in this fixture, and you've just got to be better than that and deal with it. Over to you, Lloydie. Are we any clearer on where the Dogs are at after their big win against the Saints?
Yes, I'm clearer that they're a top 8 side.
Yep.
And the excuses from them must be over about, where's our list here, there. They're a top 8 side, and they should be making it from here with the talent they've got. Back to you, Nat. Do the Bulldogs social media team did they go too far with these salty posts?
Well, I think they did. I was reading the comments and there were a lot of pissed off Bulldogs fans. I mean, look, I get what they were doing. They were trying to be cheeky.
What are you doing, Nat?
Look, Aaron Norton, we're all talking about maybe he should go back. He goes forward, kicks a bag of goals. I mean, I don't mind it, but they're trying to be the GWS social media team. Don't bother. They're the best in the business. Don't even try and match it. Let's take a quick look now at the Crypto.com tipping leaderboard. Unfortunately, I've been told we absolutely have to. And Damo is getting smugger by the moment, by the week.
You are red hot.
Yeah.
I don't know. What is going on? When is the tide going to... It's going to fall apart halfway through.
I've been doing tipping competitions for 45 years and I've never gone near it, Nat. So
I just think 5 is too hard for us to catch up, Lloydie. All right, that is all we have time for on Access All Areas this week. Enjoy the rest of the week. Footy not far away. Wednesday on afl.com.au, and the AFL Live app is the place to go. We'll see you soon.